It's a new month, and that means there's a new Avalanche trade to talk about as the Avs make a move on the defensive side. Kind of a large deal, kind of a weird deal. I don't know, some of us might think it's a bad deal. I don't know. We'll get into all of it just to officially talk the trade. The Colorado Avalanche acquire Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey from the New York Rangers, as well as the rights to a prospect for Calvin Haan, Jusso Parssinen, a second and a fourth, both in 2025. They also get half of Lindgren's contract retained. So, it feels like a bit of a weird trade to me. And I think there are some reasons that it makes sense, but obviously the biggest piece in this that the Avs are acquiring is Ryan Lindgren. We've talked about the Avs wanting to get some help on that defensive side, but they also ship Calvin Haan out. It feels like a bit of a side grade to me.
So side grade feels really, really generous, brother, because just from an analytics perspective, Calvin Haan has been pretty solid this season. The underlying numbers have been consistently they're good, man. They're good, and a lot better with Sam Malinsky than Keaton Middleton, but I'm not going to get into any of that right now. Really, you look at Calvin Haan, the amount of money that he's making and the results that he has produced on the third pairing, it's been fine. Yep. It's really when you're going through value here, it's been a decent value deal for them. You really couldn't complain that much. As the season has gone on, we were probably feeling like if he was your seventh D to open a playoff series, you'd be a lot happier than in the lineup.
Yep.
Every single game, like a set and forget part of your lineup. So with the Haan, I think you're kind of it was decent value, and the one thing that you're looking at with Ryan Lindgren right now is not decent value. Not decent value at all, because even with New York retaining 50% of it, Ryan Lindgren has been arguably, just from an analytics perspective, the worst defenseman in the NHL this season. He's been horrific, and he's been on a 2-year downward trajectory. 2 years ago, paired up alongside Adam Fox, rock solid. A guy probably playing over his head, but producing good results. Last season, a decline started to happen, and then this season, he bottomed out. So, when you say it's a side grade, it's on Ryan Lindgren to prove that he can even do that. That he can even replicate the results. Yeah. From the nerd numbers, you look at it, he breaks the graph of how awful he has been over the last 2 years.
Yep.
There isn't a single thing. Just again, I'm gonna say this purely from an analytics perspective. There isn't one single thing from this season alone that you feel is redeeming about this deal when you're talking about Ryan Lindgren. On paper, you're saying the Avs got the best player in this trade in Ryan Lindgren. In reality, given how he has played the last 2 seasons, I don't even know if that much is true, because he's been that bad.
Yeah, I think there are some other sides to it, but I'll let you get in on it first.
No. Here's the way I want to look at it. And we know that, the three of us, that's why we work well together. You guys are my analytics coaches, as you know. I always make it known, as we all know, that it's not my forte, never has been, never will be. Do I believe in it? Yes. Am I just a one-track mind, eye test? No. Do I think that you should only look at analytics? No. There's a happy medium. And for me, that's why we got the graphs out. I'm going to give you because you are so much. I mean, it's not even, you're a Hall of Famer. I'm a East Coast Hockey League player, when it comes down to analytics. So keep going with the analytics. Then I'm going to jump on with the eye test and what my thoughts are on the flip side of things. So keep
All
going
right.
with what you want to say in the analytics wise.
All right. So certainly on the surface this year, the analytics are truly terrible. I mean, he's just been awful. There's no two ways around it. What you're looking at, if you're the Avalanche, what you believe in Ryan Lindgren is that you can get him back to where he was a couple of years ago on the defensive side, because he has a pretty decent track record of, if you're looking at his whole career, he is pretty decent on the defensive side of the puck when it comes to his individual impacts, except for these last 2 seasons. You can get him back to that level, you feel a whole lot better about it. I still think there are some serious question marks, but you need that side of it. The other side of this is offensively, he's been pretty terrible for the majority of his career. Like, there is not a whole lot redeeming on the offensive side of the puck for this guy.
Yeah, and even if you just look at that player card that's on the screen right now, you see that last year it's a downward trajectory from what he was 2 years ago, but defensively, solid.
Yep.
Like that, if they could even just get that, it's acceptable. You can live with that. And that was playing on New York's top pairing alongside Adam Fox. That's not going to be his job in Colorado.
No.
That his job is to help Cale Makar by being good enough to give a few more minutes to a different pairing, not by trying to help him by literally playing alongside him.
Yeah, it's he won't be facing other teams' top competition in that regard for sure. He'll be looking at presumably the Avs see him as a guy that can fill in on the second pairing, depending on where Josh Manson is at any given time, but certainly below the top pairing level.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about a guy that will give you nothing offensively. There's no trying to sell
black hole, man.
There's
It's a
no
black
trying
hole.
to sell any of that, right? Like there's no like, oh well, maybe on offense they put him in. No, don't give me any of that nonsense right now. It's just not going to happen. He doesn't have the puck skills for it. He's not going to bring that element. He is here to do the thing that we have all argued the Avalanche need more of. They need more competitiveness. They need more grit. They need more physicality. They need more guys that want to that want to drag the team into the fight. They want a guy that is absolutely going to go out there and battle, and there is no denying that Ryan Lindgren does that. What you're not going to see on here is the intangible side of this, which Ryan Lindgren is going to excel at. That is great. You need that. The Avalanche needed that. The issue that I'm going to have, and the issue that I think a lot of people are going to have with this, is that this is a really expensive price. You go and pay for a guy who has been on a downward trajectory for the last 2 seasons, and you're looking at putting on your third pairing and saying, well, we hope this gets better.
Yeah.
And that's my struggle, is they are hoping that, okay, hey, everybody in the Rangers defense this year has been bad. Even Adam Fox has been way down from his typical levels. Okay, something is not gone right with the Rangers this season. Fair enough. You could sell me as a good bounce back candidate there. This is an expensive price for that. And that's the rub for me. It's the player has not been very good. Do I believe that the Avs can get better out of him? Absolutely. But that's because he's been at rock bottom.
Yeah, in a world where they get the best version of Ryan Lindgren, he can probably be better, at least on the defensive side, than Calvin DeHaan was for you. Like you said, he will certainly add more physicality. He will add some of the things that the Avs defense is lacking. If he plays to the best of his ability, he's probably a marginally better defenseman than Calvin DeHaan on that side of the puck. The offensive side is still a black hole. What the problem is, not just the price of what they paid, which we'll get into. They paid a lot of assets for this guy. But Calvin DeHaan was also on a significantly cheaper contract, even after the retention, which New York has on the Lindgren deal. That's still a decent chunk of money that you're paying for a guy. And things get a little bit more complicated when you're talking about the value of the trade. don't get me wrong, a second and a fourth for the pick side of things is quite a lot to give up. He is an expiring UFA, so part of this question becomes: is this a rental, or is this something where the Avs are trying to get him extended and become a piece of this decor going forward?
Yeah,
You want to take it?
I can take it now if we want to get out of the.
Your mic is something's wrong with your mic.
Yeah, you sound like a robot.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to understand you. I don't know what's going on with it, but and now you're muted. I don't know, but
Okay.
all right. Well, go ahead.
That hopefully gets sorted. Yeah, the idea is that he plays pretty well. You bring him back.
Sure.
Like it's not. Look, he's right in that age range where you're saying this is the prime of his career. Okay, great. If this is his prime, why has he been so horrible this year? Why has he gotten significantly worse over the last 2 years? But yeah, the idea would be to bring him back in free agency and make him part of this decor for the next couple of seasons. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me better now. I feel better. It was kind of echoey. I think it was the connection. It's not the mic. It's just the connection. We can get away from the screen, because I'm going to strictly talk about fit and not analytics. I think we all agree analytically. He's having a tough year. This is not a good player. I mean, when you're looking at it purely on that standpoint, but the way I look at it differently, and I respect analytics. You guys know that. I'm the first guy to. I'm not old school and believe in. No, I believe in a mixture of everything, and I believe in trusting your instincts. I believe in trusting your own staff. I do believe that the Avalanche is one of the strongest analytics staffs in the NHL. I do believe that. I do believe that. I think they use it to their to what they feel that is their strength. I do believe Coach Bednar is a guy that uses analytics a lot to figure out how to attack each game and how to get the most out of each player. So this is not a back end on me, meaning like I'm not back ending analytics. I'm just flipping on the other side of things. Sometimes you have to look at it the other way. Ryan Lindgren, if he was having a fantastic year right now, you wouldn't be getting him. It's very simple as that. So I mean, so you're not when you go get a guy, you're gonna get him on a down year. You're gonna get him on circumstances like Miko because he's not signing and he's a 50 goal scorer, and everybody's got their own little characteristics of why you can go get a guy. Clearly, this is a guy that they've been after for years. And this is a guy that it probably just didn't work out the last few years or whatever it was because he was too big of an important part of the Rangers in their locker room. This is an unbelievable family. The Lindgren family is unbelievable. Charlie, his brother, salt of the earth people. They're guys that teammates want to be part of. They want to be uh, uh, go to war with them, so to speak. We all know that there's a lot of intensity coming up here with the playoffs and the grind of it. We talk about it. I talk about it every day. That the Avs need a little bit of sandpaper, a little bit of snarl, a little bit of something. It's a little bit too much redundant. It's a little bit too much of everything. Calvin DeHaan, great. I'm not here to bash Calvin DeHaan. I think he's a nice guy. I think he was a fine player for what he was as a pickup this summer to see where things were going to go. Those are fill-ins. Philly, him, Brandstrom. Those were all fill-ins this summer to see what they were going to do, how they were going to fit in. We all know Brandstrom didn't last training camp. Shillington's been hurt all year. Calvin's the one that's been here the most. You know what I mean? In the sense that in the lineup. Um, but sometimes it's not just numbers. You can't just look at it and you feel that you want to go win it all, and you have to step away from the numbers, and then you look at those numbers and they're bad. You look at the graph. There's no going around it. It's a bad graph. But I'll tell you one thing. He's a UFA. What is he? 27, 26,
Yeah,
27.
27.
Got a lot of mileage. This is a warrior. This is a guy that drags down people into the fight. This is a great teammate. This is a guy that probably long term is going to be here longer than if things go well. Because you make a trade, you're thinking that. Well, there's two parts to this. You hope it's going to go well, then you can actually have a long term future for him, right? And then obviously, and then it makes you maybe in the summer, make decisions and maybe move on from something else. And just pick any of the defensemen in the lineup, whoever. You know what I mean? Like if you have to, it gives you a little bit more depth. Now you hope that you can turn things around, and I think over the years. I think Bednar and Prater had something to do with this thing here because they feel they can mold players. And I know, AJ, I'm not even going to say, I'm going to let you say it, you or Rudo, about who I'm thinking about. But there's guys that they've brought in this organization in the last 10 years that they've reclamation projects, so to speak. This is a little different. This is a guy that it's a veteran player in the NHL that's playing in a big market. But there's guys that have come in here and they've molded them into the way that they feel that they can mold players to play efficiently and then to make them go win. And then they don't have 6 Ds that are the same. Think
Yeah,
of
I
what?
mean,
Who's the first name you're thinking of over the last few years, in a sense?
I mean, it's from the Rangers organization, right? It's Ryan Graves. That's
There you
the
go.
guy that you look
Yeah.
at, and you
Yes.
say, hey, the Avs picked him up in a 1-for-1 AHL swap for Chris Bigras, and they let him marinate with the Eagles for a year, brought him up, and Graves just kept getting better and better and better until, he topped out at blowing a playoff game with the slap shot into Mark Stone's legs that he never should have taken. Tough ending, but the upward trajectory of Ryan Graves was the point there. It's really like
Until
that is what you're hoping for here, is that they get him into Colorado
yes.
system. Look, he's known as a
Yeah.
bruiser. He's a physical guy. He's not really tall, but he's a pretty thick boy. He's pretty wide, broad-shouldered guy. He plays with that physicality and that mean streak and that competitiveness that you do want. He will help the
Yeah.
defense in that area. That's great. It's just you look at the on ice results getting worse and worse and worse, and that's your concern. Like that is the concern, is the Avs are saying, okay, hey, we want to sprinkle the Colorado pixie dust on him and just magically hope this gets better.
it's
My question would probably be, sorry, Ritter, one sec. My question
yeah. Go
would
ahead.
be, do they hope that he becomes what Josh Manson has been? Or are they accepting that this is probably a third pairing guy, but a third pairing guy that we can get into our system, sign this summer for cheap, and have for the next few years? And if that's the case, and they end up with a cost efficient third pairing defender that actually looks pretty good and his play drastically improves, then that's fine. Like we look back at this and we go, great. The fear is this goes really poorly and they've burned 4 assets on this.
Yeah.
And that's what sucks. Like I see some people in our chat upset, like, oh, who cares about the draft pick? Oh, it's a second round pick. It's not like they were gonna. Yeah, I don't want them to keep the
What
pick.
else were they going to spend it on, though?
Exactly, and that's the thing that's the part where we're struggling with. And of course, it's so easy to sit here on our YouTube show and go, well, they could have used that second round pick on somebody better. Yeah, that's really easy for me to sit here and say, friends, but I'm just not. I don't know. I'm
mean,
just not. I'm not in love with the return right away, because you are looking at a lot of things having to go right for you to feel good about this. But it's not as if there is zero upside here.
correct.
It's not as if we're looking at it and saying, I don't see a path forward where this ends up being good for the Avs. It's not a complicated one. It's not hard to see it. It's just that it requires a total reversal from what Ryan Lindgren's career trajectory has been for the last 2 seasons. We haven't talked about this. We're also talking about a guy who has been very hurt over
Yeah.
the last couple of years. Has not been able. We talk about, oh, he's a warrior. He gets into the fight. He does all this. It has come at the cost of him being physically capable on a regular basis. His body has experienced a lot over the last couple of years, and you do wonder, is that toll permanent, or is it just that he has paid that price over the last year and the Rangers have overused him because they were comfortable with him next to Adam Fox. So that's just where he played. being in a position where he was being poorly utilized by the club that knew him best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, and I wanted to jump in and try to finish what I was
Yeah.
trying to say without the numbers, and then for me, coaching wise, you got to remember you have one of the best coaching staff in the league. Underrated piece here is Nolan Pratt. Prater does unbelievable, does marvels with the D's that he's had at his disposition. Former Avalanche Solomon Lefebvre does wonders as well. Just so you know, you look at the Florida defense a couple years ago, you're like, what, and all the injuries, and then all of a sudden they're there, and then you look at them, and then all of a sudden they move on, the Gudas of the world, and they go and get big contracts, and you turn average players or players that have had down years into some real players. And I do believe Prater with Bednar, that's where the continuity of the coaching staff, pays dividends. And I do believe that they feel they can turn this where they feel is not a normal trajectory right now. Everybody on the Rangers has had a tough year defensively. We all know that. Keandre Miller, Fox, everyone, whatever the reasons are. I can't tell you anything. With the Washington Capitals last year were minus 30 goals differential, they made the playoffs, and then they tweak a couple things. Next thing you know, they're the top of the league right now. And who knows what I'm trying to say? It just doesn't always. Uh, you can't just look at it. You have to go and you have to gamble at times as well. Now, do I think that you gamble recklessly and you have 30 beers in you and you're at the blackjack table and you're stupid? This is not what this is.
Yeah.
This is a front office that has been very intelligent for the time that they've been together. Put it together at 9 years, 10 years, whatever it is. From and Joe's still part of this. CMAC trusts his staff, his analytics staff, his pro scouts, everybody, his coaching staff. They work well together. This is nothing new for them. What I like is as they're trying on the fly right now to do a little bit of house cleaning, a little bit of housekeeping. You know what I mean? Um, Parssinen looks like it had to be part of the deal on the Rangers side of things for sure. They're the ones that probably said, "Hey, we need Parssinen." We all know it didn't work out. They got Parssinen probably to be a centerman, and next thing you know, Jack Jury came in a few days later, and we all know what they were trying to do. Parker Kelly, we talk about it every day. He's not a real centerman. They're trying to make him a centerman. They try to do the same thing with Parssinen because this is what was available. We all know it's a little thin down in the Eagles. It's thin to get call ups and all stuff like that. Now, what you're looking at here is Parsonen wasn't a fit, wasn't going to help you. I do believe me as a coach. I'm going to put my coaching hat on right now, or a player's hat on. I do believe Jimmy Vesey helps me out more than Parsonen. Trying to go win 4 rounds. He just does. He's a better fit. I like Jimmy. I like what he brings you. He's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and all of a sudden he's had some experience and he's been in big markets and he's been in big games. So for me, I feel better. If I'm Ben Nair, I feel better. Now on the defensive side of things, Ryan Lindgren, they feel that can be one of those guys that they can turn around, that can be here long term. He's from Minnesota. He's not too far. He's an American. He's ecstatic probably to be a Colorado Avalanche. No doubt about it. It's been a struggle in New York. It's been, I'm not here to bash Jack Jury's uncle. I love Chris. It's just been one of those years where everything has gone wrong from the demands of, the Trouba being, traded and asking to waive no trades and all those types of deals, right? It's just been hard. Uh, Now he's probably ecstatic to come here. He's not going to be asked to play with Kel McCarr. He's going to probably be asked to be better and put in a better position to help the Avalanche because they need a little bit of diversity in their style of play. And I do believe that if he can be the guy that he was, then the Avalanche are doing good and doing really well by acquiring a guy like that. And I think in the room, it's very important. I go back to 96 to 01, Avalanche 1.0. It took 4 or 5 years to get the right mix back together because when you have that core, you have to tinker around and try to find the right pieces to make sure that you're not all the same. I tell you all the time, you have a whiskey drinker, not all wine drinkers. Even though on paper it looks great to drink wine, sometimes you do need a whiskey drinker. You know what I mean? So analytics might tell you, and that's where you have to step in and step up to the plate and say, no, this is what we're going to do. Now, Chris McFarland is a smart individual. He's not the drunk guy at the blackjack table that I'm talking about 5 minutes ago. Knows what he's doing, knows how to rely on his staff. There's not one man decisions in there. And am I being biased? No, I love the Avalanche, and I do love the front office. I do believe in what they do. That's why the last 7, 8 years they've had one of the best 7, 8 years in the history of the league. It is. It's a fact. And their
Yep.
core players are right there. They can make other people better. Kel McCarr can make you better, even if you're a third, fourth, fifth, sixth D and you're not playing with him, because he takes on all that pressure. Nate McKinnon makes you a better player because you get slotted in the right places and you go. And as we saw the last few games, all of a sudden the Tushkin's back, and then all of a sudden the guys are the Coltons of the world are back where they should be, and all of a sudden they're going to start producing. So I do believe this is house cleaning. This is housekeeping for the Avalanche. I like what they did. I don't like it analytically. You guys are my two coaches on analytics. I say it to the world. You guys are the two best that I feel to make me understand, something I'm not very good at, and I love relying on you guys. And I totally agree with it because it's easy to see. It doesn't make sense. But now on the flip side of things, on the locker room side of things, on the fit side of things, on the eye test side of things, I mean, I love this deal. I do. I really do. Now, if you're trying to win, the cost of assets sometimes, yes, on paper or to us, like you said, doing like a podcast, it might be expensive. Coaches don't give a crap about that. That's up to the manager to make sure that they're not being irresponsible, and then they get an asset in there as well in a prospect that they like. They clearly like this guy. It's not like it's a throw in. Like, there's some people that might think it's a throw in. This is a guy that they are thin in prospects. Who's the best prospect come out of the Avalanche the last 2 years? Sam Malinsky. He's a college free agent. He was 25 years old, 24 years old when he signed. That's what he is. And then because they have no choice, they don't have those guys coming up. They do have Richies up front, but I mean, they do have the Gulievs, and then they do have, who knows what's going to happen here. But on the fly, if you can get an extra guy now that can go to Loveland next year, and then maybe, be a year away from, it's better than a second round pick next year that you're probably 5 years away from having, to see him in your lineup or in your system. So there's a big thing there that you got to trust your amateur guys on this one. You got to trust your pro guys. You got to trust the work that's being done internally on what is this Ryan Lindgren? What is this Jimmy Vesey? Can they be a good fit here? Is this a good part of our locker room? And then what if we move these guys, Parssinen and Haan? There's a reason you're moving on from them for whatever the reasons are. You know what I mean? We're not there in the locker room. I'm talking about purely non-analytics. Analytics is easy. It's they're right there. They're in front of you. It's a graph, and you know what I mean. There's other things that you look at and you look into, and that's why for me, if you sit path, and I've seen that so many times in my life, in GMs that are so scared to make moves, and they never do anything, and they never go anywhere, and they never win. These guys are not scared. And when I say these guys, the Avalanche front office, in conjunction with the coaching staff, they're never afraid to make moves in what they believe will make you successful, will tinker with your unbelievable core. And that's why I say Avalanche 1.0, 96 to 01. They had to tinker, and all of a sudden, bingo, bam, they got it. And then all of a sudden, they felt that they're the first overall team in the NHL in 01. They're like, no, we got to tinker more. We got to go get a Rob Blake because we need Borkfoot, Blake on D. We need the big three, Montreal Canadiens influence of the 70s. And then they trade Adam Deadmarsh, a big piece of the locker room. They don't win the cup if they don't make that trade. And it's not easy to make trades sometimes because it didn't make sense, that trade. It didn't. And they were first in the league. They were first overall. It's the same thing here. If you look at analytically, it doesn't make sense. But sometimes you have to look at it differently. And that's why I like the front office, because I learned, this is my dad here talking. I learned over the years, and I worked in the front office under his tutelage. And it's like, it's easy to crap on deals that didn't make, and God knows we've made a lot of deals that don't make sense and didn't work out. But if you're shooting, or we talk about the 10 game segments every day, if you're shooting 7 out of 10 and you're batting 700, you're definitely winning the freaking whatever you call that in baseball. Like, trust me, at 700, you're
Batting
winning the
title.
freaking best batter in the league. The batting title. But if you're harping on the 3 you missed, because you will miss. And that was my old man's philosophy. Like, let's not talking about the 3 we missed. We learn from these ones and let's move on. But we will make
I'm
mistakes. The goal is not to make mistakes. But you can't harp on the 3 times that you made a mistake. But what I love is that they're going for it. You have to go for it when you have that core. And if you feel that you are stale in some, in net, boom, you go fix it. You're the Miko thing, boom, you go fix it. Of course, you don't want to trade Miko Rantanen. We're not going back. We talked about it for weeks, but you got to go and address it. You address it. Now you get a little bit of housekeeping things that you got to deal with for whatever the reasons. We don't know. We're not in the locker room, but maybe we're gonna move this and move on from this guy, and doing this. And Parssinen, yeah, it didn't work out, but try to make him a center. We got Jury a week later. Oh wow, don't need him anymore. Now he's not really a bottom six. Now let's go get this veteran guy and let's move on. And for me, if you look at it that way, and I think as a fan base, it's like they're trying to go for it. And that's what I love about that front office, because they try to go for it. Is it going to work out? Time will tell. Is this deal going to be bad a year from now? I don't know. Now, me, I don't care about picks. I've always been that way, because as a player, you don't care. You don't care. Oh, we got a second round pick. Players are like, who cares? I might not even be here in 2 years. I don't care. The guy, I'll never meet him. It's not important. As a coach, they don't care about picks. They care about the 20 guys they're going to go to war with that night, the 23 guys, 24, 25, whatever, because there's no numbers in playoffs of who's going to go in there in that journey with them. And sometimes if it's costing you a second round pick, so be it. I've seen it over my career, over my life in this league. I've seen so many teams die with second round picks and 30 to third round picks. Okay, great. You know what I mean? But you never win. You never go anywhere. You know what I mean? And that, I think there's a fair balance by the front office of the Avalanche to try to not be the drunk guy at the blackjack table, to rely on the analytics, but also to rely on what they feel internally by being in the room, by their coaching staff, by their pro scouts out there working, and by your experience of trying to not to make the same mistakes that you did, to have a mixture of everything. And if you look at it that way, yeah, talk to me next year. We'll see. Ryan Lindgren might be signed here, and we're gonna say this is the greatest thing ever. And he signed at a decent price. He's 27 years old, and now you got a warrior that's killing penalties. That's there. That's on your third pair, whatever it is. He's certainly not gonna be on your top pair. And then you go from that. It costs you this, and that, and then you're like, you know what? We moved on. We got this, and but we got a nice ring to show for it. I'm not telling you that Ryan Lindgren gives you the Stanley Cup. I'm not that dumb. But what they've done though with the goaltending, with the Miko situation, and what they might do the rest of the week here, in the core that they have, I don't want to play them in the playoffs. I'm being honest, I don't.
So I think, okay, there's a couple of things that I really do want to unpack here, just so that we make sure that we're having a correct conversation here of we're all on the same page of I don't think either any of the three of us are going to miss Jusso Parssinen or Calvin DeHaan. Correct?
No.
No.
Jimmy Vesey coming in and replacing.
Yeah, like VC for Parssinen, fine. You can look at that as a 1-for-1. Eric kind of alluded to it. Parssinen, I saw what they were trying to do with the Parssinen deal. It didn't work. You bring in VC as a guy who can play in your bottom six and understands how to play a bottom six role in a way that Parssinen didn't. Parssinen was supposed to be a skill guy that added production to your middle six, and it didn't really work. So compared to that, VC can go be a bit more of a grinder for you in your bottom six if he's in your lineup, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. That part of the deal, I kind of just look at, okay, you traded Parssinen for VC, fine, whatever. And then you have everything else in the deal. You're muted. Nope.
You're
still
muted. You're muted.
Nope. Still not working.
You're muted.
Well, AJ's trying to figure that out. There are, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with it, but there are a couple other things I wanted to get into here. Hopefully AJ can figure it out. Look, I do want to be clear that, like, when we talk about the Avs getting the most out of these guys, this isn't like a homerism thing. The Avs are one of the best at getting improved play out of players pretty much under the age of 30. Most of their failed reclamation projects, or whatever you want to call them, are guys like Ryjo, are guys like Tatar, who have already made maybe over the hump in their career in that regard. To be fair, Parssinen didn't work out. He's one of the few under 30 that didn't work out, but they've moved on from him now. And I think there is reason to believe they can get a good amount out of Ryan Lindgren. The other major positive thing, and you can talk about how positive it is, because again, the analytic numbers are not particularly good this year, but Ryan Lindgren has played a huge amount of minutes on the penalty kill for the New York Rangers. If you are looking to take minutes away from Cale Makar and Devon Toews, if you are trying to get them a little bit more rest, him playing a lot of penalty minutes can go a long way in getting those guys a little bit less time on the ice.
Yep, and that's probably one of the big reasons they did it. If you look at it last night, Cale and Devon almost played 30 again. You know what I mean? And everybody else was at what, 12, 13, 14, you know what I mean? And that's too much. That's too much. You have to be able to find the right mix. And that's why I love that you can do it on the fly. It's not working. You're not being stubborn about it. This is not working. We can fix that. Move on. Like Parsonen's a great example. You know what I mean? Let's try to make him a centerman. He's not really a centerman. Then Drury comes in. Okay, well, he's expendable now. Let's move on. Let's see what happens next. Obviously, clearly had to be part of this. I'm sure the New York Rangers were like, yeah, we'll give it a go. We want him. You know what I mean? Great, awesome. It's perfect. That doesn't mean you're a bad player. Sometimes you're just a better fit somewhere else. And that's how it works.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, he's back.
I'm nervous to try this again. With, I think we've covered the Lindgren part of this. Stylistically, he's a better skater than you would expect. That'll fit. But the physicality is something that they needed. The sandpaper is something, the competitiveness, all of that is stuff that they needed. They get better in that regard. That's great. I'm sold on that. I have no issues there. It's the Jimmy Vesey for Jusso Parssinen. They get better right there. In a playoff series, I'd rather have Jimmy Vesey than Jusso Parssinen. Parssinen, we were hoping would come in and be a decent like young center that would be cost controlled for a few years. Played a lot in the top six. It didn't go very well. Val Nichushkin comes back for 2 games, and you're like, oh, that's what a top six is supposed to look like. Very, very different feel for the Avs forward core the last 2 games with Val Nichushkin in it. Not entirely because Val Nichushkin is sort of a unicorn in the NHL, but a little bit. But it really is like you got to see what a so much better version of this forward core looks like when you actually had a little bit of depth. Jimmy Vesey's going to make you better there. I know that Jared Bednar loves this guy, but Yoel Kiviranta is not a guy I'm trusting in a postseason series. I'm not trusting him. He goes 30 games without doing anything. That's Jimmy Vesey gives you an experienced guy that can do a little bit of everything for you. It's great. Like he's just helpful depth. And at $800K, it's cheap. I'm good with this. For my money, you kind of replace. You kind of had you had the defensive. You had Calvin DeHaan on defense. You replaced him with the forward version in Jimmy Vesey, a guy that really cheap money wise can play in your lineup. Rock solid. Like if he's your 13th forward at the start of a postseason series, you feel like at some point he'll play. Like he's fine. He's not great shakes offensively. Nobody's going to sit here and try and sell you that Jimmy Vesey is a missing piece here, but he helps. We forget the 22 Cup run. Alex Newhook was a healthy scratch at the start of the postseason series in favor of Nicholas Aube-Kubel. You need a couple of extra bodies here at forward that are going to help you. And who are the guys that are not in the NHL right now? Name me a forward that you feel comfortable coming into a postseason series.
Can
you?
I mean, define comfortable.
I mean, a guy that you're actually comfortable with. Like a guy that comes, like for me, I'm like, maybe Ivan.
Yeah, same. Maybe, that was the one name that I was thinking about.
Maybe Ivan. And that's, for right now, that's kind of a tough sell. Like the rest of these guys, Yuri Inala, Chase Bradley, those are all no. Ty Felliber, Matt Phillips, TJ Tynan, give me a break with this. These guys aren't going to do it for you. So this helps you. This helps you just this much. It helps you a little bit in that regard. Now, if you turn around and you trade Miles Wood to Boston next week in a Trent Frederick deal, I really like how things are starting to look in that
Feels
forward
like
core.
VC could slip into Wood's spot pretty easily in that world, and we'll get into that
Exactly.
conversation, I'm sure. Yeah,
That's
it,
exactly it. Especially if you could find some savings, some cap savings, because this deal does hurt you cap wise. You
yep.
go from having right around 5 million to having 3.2 million in cap space. Now, again, we've talked about this a few times. You can save a little bit of that if you stop carrying 8 defensemen. If you drop a Keaton Middleton down to the AHL, that gives you another 700,000. You're talking about $4 million to play with. So there's still a little bit of room here. They still have a second round pick. They still have a fourth round pick. Honestly, try and get rid of both of those picks. Get rid of a seventh. Don't make a single pick in the upcoming draft.
Go for it. I'm in.
Yeah.
I do think it is important to mention that, though, right? They very intentionally went out and got half retention on Lindgren to free up. Currently, it's right about 3.3 million in space. Like you said, they can finagle things to get it closer to like 4 million. And then if they make a move like just an example of a Miles Wood, you could push it up to even like $5 or $6 million of available space. So they could still go and get a big piece. And realistically, because they did that retention, that is a giant bat signal that they are not done. That there is going to be another move at this deadline for the Colorado
Yeah.
Avalanche. So there is very likely more to come.
I do think that it is absolutely important that the three to note that the three of us believe that this is not the end for this.
Yeah.
There's going to be something else that happens. And to be honest with you, with Ryan Lindgren, he's not such a hard like, oh, this is a top 4 guy, no questions asked. Like you could see them go and get another defenseman. There could be somebody where Sam Malinsky becomes your 7th guy going into a postseason series. Frankly, that's probably a best case scenario. I do want to touch really quickly. I know that I was like, hey, let's stop talking about Ryan Lindgren, but one thing that I was going through, Ryan Lindgren's numbers away from Adam Fox the last couple of years have been pretty awful. The one guy who had pretty solid numbers with was Eric Gustafson. Do the Avs happen to have like an Eric Gustafson type defenseman somewhere in their defensive core?
Did he play well last night?
I don't know who you thought played well last night. I thought most of the team played well last night. Anyway, I'm personally thinking about Sam Girard here, where you move Sam Girard over to the right side, you put Ryan Lindgren on the left side, and then you have a third pairing that you're kind of making up still. I think that there's still a body to be added there, but you could do that. You could put the Sams together and then rock a third pairing of Ryan Lindgren and Josh Manson. Like there are some different things that you could do here.
Hear me
but
out.
I do
Go get Eric Gustafson.
Oh, I'm forgetting about Oliver Shillington in all of this mess.
That's what I thought you
who
were
Eric
talking
was
about.
referring
That's
to.
what I thought you were talking about.
But yeah, you have Oliver Shillington, who spent a lot of his time in his career playing on the right side. If you put him next to Ryan Lindgren on a third pairing, like you see where this starts to come together. And like, hey, I think we've made the point. Ryan Lindgren has been brutally bad analytically this season. Is that the end of his career because he has one truly bad season analytically? No, it shouldn't be. If he does not turn it around, pick it up this year with the Avs, then you might be talking about a 29-year-old Ryan Lindgren in the KHL, something like that. But I do think there is a path here. His skating is good enough. He fits what the Avs are going to need, and the Avs have the guys around him to say, okay, he can help on your PK. He's going to hit people. He does things that you do need. It's just, does he do them is that enough to make up for the other shortfalls in his game? Is getting out of New York, where it has to be a notable point that everybody has been bad. Even the Messiah, Adam Fox, has been way down from what we have seen previously.
Yes.
When you look at their bottom four, right? Like, put them in whatever order you want, but a combination of Gerard, Manson, Lindgren, and Shillington or Malinsky or whoever, it looks a lot more balanced than it has in a long time. It just does.
It absolutely does. You do feel like this is a group that on paper makes a lot more sense with what their skills are, because a Lindgren Shillington third pairing with Sam Malinsky as your 7 and Gerard and Manson, like, I still have a problem with Gerard and Manson just because Manson in particular has been so bad this year.
Yep.
But okay, I see that. But if you get a really good performance out of Ryan Lindgren, what I was just talking about, where you move Gerard
Swap
over to the right side, and you can there are chess pieces to be moved around the board. You're not stuck in stasis where you're saying we're playing Keaton Middleton. We're choosing to play Keaton Middleton.
There you go.
Which, just for my money, please stop doing that to me. Please. Don't do that to me anymore.
The one negative I wanted to touch on this trade still, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. Chat was talking about it earlier. You essentially paid a second and a third and a fourth in this deal, and yes, you got a Vesey and a prospect in Kempf rather. That's not nothing, but also if you wanted a defenseman, you could have had one literally for free in Jusso Parssinen less than a week ago.
I've said my piece on Jusso Parssinen, brother.
And this is where I'm going to jump in. This is where I'm going to jump in and not say that that's a bad comment by Rudo, because that's a great comment by Rudo. It's a fair comment. But here's what I'll say, and I'm not here to peel Valmaki's onion. I'm not. But when your job is to be analyzing the whole NHL and day in and day out in the front office and in the scouting world, and there's a reason he went through and 32 teams passed, including his own guy that,
Clearly.
So what I'm trying to say is, and that's not fair because we don't know why, because that's not our job. Our job is to look at it and say, oh yeah, man, it could have been so easy. All we had to do is pick up that guy. You know what I mean? And so there's a reason. You know what I mean? Then there's a reason why not everyone plays 25 years. Because then, if it was that easy, everyone, your neighbor, my neighbor, I would still be playing. I would have never gotten out of the league after 9 years. You know what I mean? There's a reason why you get out of the league. There's a reason why people pass on you. It's life. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But you have to look back and to say, are really 32 front offices that just moronic and dumb? And you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason. You know what I mean? And when you do that, but it's easy to see, wow, you could have done that for free, of course. You know what I mean? But again, that wasn't the answer. You know what I mean? Because else they would have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
of course they would have.
Yeah, there has to be more to the Jusso Parssinen story. There just does. He's been too good. He's too young. He's signed for too cheaply. Something has to be going on with Jusso Parssinen that we're just not privy to, and that is where I have settled on it. We know how this league operates. They are every NHL team is desperate for cost-efficient defenders who have size, block shots, and hit people. There's just something that we don't know about that's happening behind the scenes there, and
let's be honest, the Avs were very clearly targeting a specific type of defenseman in Lindgren, and Jusso Parssinen is not that at all. Valimaki's not going to hit people. He's not going to go out there and play heavy hockey. He's a good defenseman. I like him. I wanted him. But if what they were looking for was Ryan Lindgren, Jusso Parssinen doesn't answer that question.
And that's why we talked about it, all three of us. I talked about it earlier in the pod there. That's where I think Prater, Bednar, and their history with trying to turn someone's game around, like Lindgren, and they feel that this is the perfect guy that they can mold into the way they want them to play and to be a perfect fit for them, or else they wouldn't do it. Or else, why would they do that deal? So that's what they feel they can do it. They feel they can transform him back to what they feel is a key ingredient to a cup winning team. Because he is different than all the other guys that are dressed in the lineup tomorrow night. He's different.
I do want to also just quickly touch the prospect, Hank Kempf. I will tell you, the presence of David Kampf in the NHL for so long has messed me up every time I look at his name or think about it. Or I'm just like, "Bruh."
You know how many times on this pod I've almost said David already?
Yeah, same.
No, he's a D.
We've already heard Hank Kempf is a guy that the Avalanche. He's in his 4th year at Cornell, a place that they are very familiar scouting. By the way, we've already heard that they have every intention of signing him, and that he's a guy that they particularly like and targeted in this deal as kind of a, we want a defensive defenseman in our system. The Eagles don't really have one of those. That's, I should say the Eagles don't have very much of those.
Wyatt
a lot of their
Amott is kind of the only
exactly
one short of
Wyatt Amott is kind of the guy that you're looking at and saying, well, that's the dude. So you do I don't know. Maybe it works out. Maybe he does something. Maybe he becomes a guy down the road. Cool. If not, I mean, we can't even get his name right on the emergency pod show. Like it's, like expectations are not going to be really high, but he's a guy that might be able to work his way. And as we've talked about on this pod, we have seen the Avs have succeeded with this archetype of player over the years. Ryan Graves is obviously the best example, but you look at Andreas Englund. He wasn't doing anything before he got into Colorado and then worked his way into it. He might drive me crazy. Keaton Middleton is another guy that you're looking at and saying, hey, this archetype of player has found success in the Avalanche system. You give them a couple of years to work on it, and we've seen these guys get there. So I'm not going to write off Hank Kempf right away. I am encouraged that this doesn't sound like a contract that they don't care about, that this is a guy they want to sign. Just going to grind the axe that I have to grind on this. If they were so gung-ho about this, they could have just freaking kept Jeremy Hansel and just signed him and not moved him needlessly and just let him be that guy instead of targeting guys in random deals. It's fine, but I'm still going to grind the axe because I loved that kid. So
me too.
It is what it is.
Realistically, Kempf is 3+ years away from the NHL, if we're being honest about it. That is a long path for that guy. Hopefully it works out. Maybe the Avs see something and it clicks, but it's not something, if you're worried about the NHL, that I would worry about too much. Put it to you that way. All right. I don't have a whole lot more on this deal. It does feel a little bit on the expensive side for assets. Realistically, of high-value picks, the Avs now have just a second rounder this year. They also have a 4th rounder, depending on where you value that. But
can I just say, I was really disappointed to see that there was not a 2026 7th rounder coming back to Colorado.
Just some nonsense.
I kept waiting and was like, come on, load up. Give me to 5 7th rounders next year, baby. They did not. Missed opportunity, CMAC.
Get to 20% of that 7th round.
Yep. I was real bummed about it. They could have swapped this year's for next, just for fun. This is my new personal thing to care about.
It's I'm down. Or they can package them all for a deal for somebody. Give somebody 7 7th round picks. Then you're really playing Chell at that point. But look, I think you can definitely see where this trade makes sense for the Avs. Is it a little bit on the pricey side? Maybe.
Yes.
And
yes.
Again,
yes.
Yeah, we can just say yes. I would add on to that, though. They're not done. There is almost certainly another trade coming over the next week. So
Again, I go back. It's subject to what you think is pricey, and I respect that you're saying it's pricey. That I would never disrespect that, or anybody. Other GMs might think it's pricey. There's a lot of GMs that thought that Barclay Goodrow, what I mean, traded for a first round pick for Tampa, but you know what? What's his name? The GM in Tampa, he didn't care. And at the end of the day, they got a ring to show for it. Not that Barclay Goodrow gave them the Stanley Cup, no, but he was part of the depth in this thing that they feel that they had to fix. They had to fix their makeup. They had to fix their room. They had to fix the disappointment of losing to Columbus, the year before. And then they were fixing those things. And then, well, so
Of
is
course,
that pricey? I don't know. Get a nice
does it?
shiny ring for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's all good.
Yeah.
I got no
Look,
problem.
Yeah,
it feels a
pricey.
little pricey today. If they win the Stanley
That's
Cup,
it.
who cares? No,
Well
the
said.
price
Well
was a
said. That's what I'm
steal.
saying. Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Well
say
said.
about this. Even had it been the Ryan Lindgren of last year,
Yeah,
this would have been an acceptable price. But just
agreed.
because he's been so bad this year, and that's why I say it's pricey, because you are paying a high value here, a high price in. You gave up 2 NHL players. You gave up a second round pick that will be, it looks like, in the top 20 of the round, so probably a top 50 pick, and like a fourth round that I'm really not like throwing a fit about this.
It's
It really
outside the
is
top
not.
100.
It's
It's
fine.
whatever. Yeah.
But you're talking about, you gave up 4 assets for a guy that and Jimmy Vesey and a prospect you like. Like, you gave up 4 assets, you got 3 back. If you look at it that way, it's really not bad value. But it's just that when you're getting guys who are on downward trajectories and you're paying such a high price for it, that hurts. Like, we that's what inspires hope in me that somebody will take Miles Wood off Colorado's hands, because he's been bad this year, but apparently that doesn't matter.
Well,
Apparently it's fine. A guy can have a bad year and still be worth something out on the trade market, like. And for the record, I won't be surprised at all when Miles Wood is a Boston Bruin next week. Won't be surprised at all.
same. And the value conversation can change quickly on a deal like this, regardless of the Stanley Cup situation.
For sure.
If Lindgren comes
Guy
here, plays
stays.
well, if he on June 28th, if he signs in Colorado for $3 million,
Sure.
there's a bunch more value to having acquired that guy at this point.
Yo, give him the Carson
Leadership.
deal, and I'm not kidding.
Sure, I'm down.
Leadership.
Give him
Leadership.
the Carson Soucy deal. I think you end up walking away from this feeling perfectly fine.
You need some leaders, and this guy's the leader, and you can't downplay leadership. It's very important.
Yep, intangibles matter, absolutely.
They
That's
do.
all I got, unless you guys want
Me
to
too.
wrap things up here.
Is there the last thing, just because we're doing this emergency pod and our next show is the roast my roster, and then we're taking Wednesday off? Like, this is our last kind of like normal, just the 3 of us kind of hanging out until the deadline day itself. What is the priority now?
Center. I to be honest, the priority was center before this deal. It just hasn't changed.
Yeah, I would say that too.
So still a Yanni Gord, Jake Evans to add to Jack Drury.
Every day I wake up and want O'Reilly more, but yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's sort of. I think the 3 of us agree that, like, if they could get a Ryan O'Reilly or a Sam Bennett, like, great. But you're not adding to Casey Middlestat at that point. You're replacing Casey Middlestat with that guy.
Probably.
Your
any
depth
of our
change.
top 3, any of the top 3 on our trade board, which is Evans, O'Reilly, and Gord. I think not in that order, but yeah.
It's Gord, Evans, O'Reilly, and then Bennett at 4. I mean,
if O'Reilly's unrealistic, I think Bennett is also unrealistic. But who knows?
I do. I guess seriously, last point. I wonder about the Lindgren contract. Like, I'm joking. Like, the Carson Soucy, great. I don't think he'll sign for that cheap. But if they could get that, that'd be amazing. But if it ends up being a little more expensive, that makes it tough to do some of the other big stuff that we've been dreaming about them doing since the Rantanen deal, where we were like, look, they've got a little bit of extra money. That goes away really quickly.
if it's not under 4, it gets tough, I think, with Lindgren.
Well, and that's because they just replaced an $800,000 contract with a guy that could make $4 million next year. Now, if Lindgren plays well, it opens the door for potentially moving a Josh Manson over the summer, which is something that I think they should look into. If that is how they want to balance it, great. These are all summer conversations, though.
Not in season stuff. We do have one super chat before we get out of here, so let's hit that very quickly. $5 from Luke, who says, at this point, C-Mac is basically Zordon handing out morphers to random villains and wondering why his team keeps losing trades. I believe how many how many trades has he really lost lately? The Raijo trade? Sure. The Parssinen trade, I guess. But now you flip that asset into something else. I don't know. And this was what, their 6th trade this season?
Yeah, you feel great about both goalie trades.
Right. You feel really good about those.
Honestly, the asset that they just gave to New York, the 4th round pick, is one that they got from Brandstrom in the preseason. Yep. They signed a guy, played him 0 games, and got an asset for him that they just used. If Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey help them go deep in the playoffs, I mean, that's a real good piece of business.
So far, you feel pretty okay with the Mikko trade, too, but...
The whole league feels pretty good about that one. And again, we just talked about it. If you look at it, you bat 7 for 10. If you concentrate on the 7, or if you harp on the 3, you're looking at it the wrong way. I mean, that's just it's a fact. You're looking at it the wrong way. Those guys have done amazing trades.
Just double checking, but I think the 2nd round pick they used in this deal is the one that they acquired by trading out of the 1st round last year with Utah.
Correct. Yes.
So
exactly.
We don't usually look at like draft pick swaps in that light, but again, if Ryan Lindgren plays well and justifies this and becomes a solid av for the next few years, you look at all of those and how they built together, and you're like, it's a good couple pieces of business.
The pick they made became Nabokov, and then Lindgren ends up for the other 2nd. Yeah.
Yep.
Also, Minnesota traded a 2nd for Gus Nyquist, 50% retained. Cool. Gus Nyquist has been kind of bad this year.
21 points, dude.
Yeah. So
everyone's bad in Nashville.
For the record, Ryan Lindgren has 17 points this year. So
we're high.
If we're looking at point totals, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that crazy of a price for Lindgren compared to a 2nd for Nyquist.
No, he has 19 points this year.
Is it? It's 17 assists. Yeah, he's got 2 goals. Yeah. So they're basically the same point totals getting traded for there. I don't know.
I'm pumped for Tuesday now. I'm pumped for Tuesday's game. I'm pumped. I'm excited.
I tell you what, we're all going to instantly love this trade the first time Ryan Lindgren
blows somebody up.
I can't say his name, but he's going to go out and he's going to smoke somebody, or he's going to fight somebody who did something dumb, and we're all going to be like, sick, this guy rules. And it's going to be fun for those 10 minutes until he blows a coverage in front of the net.
Everybody basically. Everybody's done that.
All right. We are going to wrap it up. Make sure you're getting in all of your rosters for Roast My Roster on Monday, which are now updated. You're going to have to change it if you submitted it already. Oops.
Yeah, it sucks. I have to trade. I have my trade piece that I've been working on for several days because I've had really bad focus issues. I have a problem.
Yep. You got to rewrite the whole thing.
I got to rewrite 2 of those deals now.
So get those in. We appreciate y'all. We'll be back on Monday, or when the Avs make another trade. We'll see. We appreciate y'all.
See you in a couple hours.
This has been a DNVR Avalanche Emergency Podcast.